Spyder's back!
Spyder, Spyder, here comes Spyder, CFL's Red-Zone Rule. Hit it!
Hit it! Spyder, Spyder, here comes Spyder, CFL's Red-Zone Rule. Hit it! I want to hear you loud at the CFL game, chanting loud in the red zone 2019. We want Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule. How you doing? I'm back. I wasn't going to be back, but I wanted to cover my optional provision part of my CFL Red Zone Rule that I only actually covered in part 2, okay, of my presentation that I made, okay, on my YouTube session, presentation part that I made to the Commissioner of CFL and the CFL on January 31st of 2018, and of course my part 1 was my intro and how I come up with my CFL Red Zone Rule, and then part 3 was their decision and conclusion. So watch those 3 parts first, and now right up to, okay, part 27. All right, can you believe it? So I wanted to leave you with this session, my favorite number 27. I thought it was appropriate. I was going to leave you with the Eddie Shack one, and then I ran into the caretaker. I had to do a special edition for the caretaker, the owner of the Hamilton Tigers, Mr. Bob Young, that I was really pumped up and excited about. That got to the caretaker, by the way, Mr. Bob Young. And I'll tell you something right at the end that what happened because of that, that's really impressive. And that I'll probably be making a trip to Hamilton. I'll tell you about it at the end, okay? At the very last before I sign off. So I'm going to just kind of generalize and talk to you, okay? And the title was the optional provision part, and then did the CPA, Players Association, trick the CBA vote, okay? And there's more to that as well that I'm going to add. So, okay, so I just want to check on anything that I should say at first before I go over the optional provision part, because in the Bob Hunt special edition part, I mentioned my optional provision part in my presentation I made to him, my CFL Red Zone Rule, but I didn't go over it. So I'm about to go over it. That I sent him, by the way, by email. Okay, so I want to go over the optional provision part now, okay? Remember, it's the optional provision part of my CFL Red Zone Rule. Okay, I personally like it played out on its own, but it's there because it actually does make it 100% foolproof in relation to if there was any sticky point, anything sticking out, okay, that it wouldn't cover. So this optional provision part would cover any little sticky point coming out, although I like it myself personally playing out on its own. But it is quite an important part if it was to be added that would really cover all the scenarios and all the aspects and anything that could occur in any situation during the CFL game that the optional provision part of my CFL Red Zone Rule would cover. So here it is, okay? It's a very short piece, okay? And it was at the last part of the rules of my second version of my proposed new CFL Red Zone Rule that I didn't read, okay, for Mr. Bob Young. And I sent an email to him on it, and I'm about to read to the audience out there, okay? Optional provision part to my second version of my proposed new CFL Red Zone Rule. If the CFL team in the last 10 seconds of the game has the ball in the red zone and stays in the red zone on first, second, and third down, using my second version of my proposed new CFL Red Zone Rule, they will be able to opt to kick the CFL Red Zone kick from the 35-yard line for 3 points to win the game or to tie the game and force it into overtime. The CFL could have it apply to the last 10 seconds of both halves of the game, or have it apply to only the last 10 seconds of the game. I personally like that better. The optional provision part of my second version of my proposed new CFL Red Zone Rule would not apply to the current CFL overtime format because there is no clock. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Okay? It's an optional provision part, okay, that can be added to my CFL Red Zone Rule. Okay? If you like it better, it's there. And it can happen. Alright? And we'll make it 100% foolproof. Okay? And we'll make it work 100%. Okay? Which it works now 100%. We'll make it work 150% then. Okay? Alright. That's it. That's what I wanted to cover. Short and sweet. Alright, that's what I sent to the caretaker as well. Okay, so now we're going to get into, okay, also, now I want to get into my session. And also on the 26th session I did, the last one. Okay, when I was talking about the players and the Canadian Basic Players Association, what they got on the Canadian Collective Bargaining Agreement, CBA. I forgot to mention on the three-year medical coverage that they got from 1 year. Okay, that's going to cost CFL teams $400,000 when there's no money. And by the way, the Montreal Alouettes now officially being run by the CFL and their owners, Mr. Bob Young, who propped up the Hamlin Tiger Cats and lost tens of millions, and now would like to make a profit. Well, that's going to go to prop up, to keep the Alouettes in the league. Okay, the CFL and the owners, they can't afford this. This is what's happening. And the CFL players, the Canadian players and the Canadian Players Association, okay, and their Canadian ratio, right? Because I think the CFL actually should be called that. The C should be in 3 C's, okay, standing for Canadian Players Association, Canadian Players Association, and the Canadian ratio. Football League. That's what it should. That's what it really is, by the way, because that's exactly what's happening. They're controlling the CFL, and they control them in the CPA agreement, and basically put a gun against their head at the last minute to force their hand. They reneged on reducing the Canadian starter ratio from 7 to 5. Okay, when the owners wanted it completely eliminated, like I want to completely eliminate Canadian starter ratio, and they want the Canadian ratio gone as well. You can't blame them. They want to be like the NHL, the NFL, okay, Major League Baseball, NBA, and yes, even MLS soccer. They want to be able to recruit the best available players and to allow them to start and play at every position for an entire CFL game. So CFL 3-down football can be played at its highest level with the best available players. That's common sense. That's any professional any professional sports league would want to have. But no. The CFL are being controlled and run by Canadian players and the Canadian Players Association, and Keeping, who is a guaranteed Canadian starting ratio alignment, and Ramsey, who was one as well, his main executive guy, and others Canadian guaranteed alignment that are there too, that are carefully selected members of the Canadian Players Association. And Mr. Ambrosi was one of them. He was a guaranteed Canadian roster ratio, alignment, and he also was on the Canadian Players Association and fought the CFL and the owners when they wanted to do the same thing and eliminate the Canadian starter ratio because they wanted to grow their brand of CFL 3-down football and attract more fans and have a better product on the field. And they shut them down again. And Ambrosi, you're on their side. You're in with them. And I'll tell you why in a minute for sure. Well, I'll tell you now, because Dave Dickinson said last night in an interview on the CFL.ca when asked about, okay, because Randy Bravosi's CFL 2.0 guaranteed 1 roster spot, okay, next year it'll be 2. And David Dickinson was asked, if he starts, that global player, what is it going to affect the Canadian starter ratio? Take 1 player, which it should, okay? It shouldn't take an American, okay? But it's going to take an American player. Not a Canadian player. It's going to take an American starter position. And next year it's going to be 2. Guaranteed another baloney global roster player. You saw them out there in exhibition games. They're brutal. Okay? And what if 2 are made starters? There goes 2 more American positions. The CFL, you're going down, my friend. You're going to lose more and more fans. There'll be nobody in the stands now. There's tens of thousands empty seats now. There'll be nobody in the stands. And season ticket holders will not renew. And when they hear about this, and Ambrosi, you set that up. you're in bed with the Canadian Players Association and the Canadian players. And you're only out for the Canadian players, okay? And their pocketbooks. You don't give, you're like the Canadian player, you don't give a shit about the CFL. And you're the commissioner, you're only there to help the Canadian players. And what they're doing, they're raping the CFL. Can you imagine, the Montreal Alouettes? 3 buyers walked away. No one's going to buy. Montreal Alouettes losing $12 million with all these empty seats, 10 to 15,000 empty seats. And the owners are running them now in the CFL, taking more money from the owners when only 3 teams made a profit, 2 a small profit, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders a slightly bigger profit. That was Winnipeg and Edmonton. Okay, the rest of the CFL teams lost money. Okay, and you imagine Bob Young, who propped up the Helmut Tiger Cats to keep them, basically to keep the CFL in business, to keep the Helmut Tiger Cats franchise alive, and now he's paying to keep the Montreal Alouettes in business. This is unbelievable. And the Canadian players go out and say, "Oh, we want to be partners. We want to grow the league," and you're taking $400,000 from them on the medical insurance from teams. They can't afford that. What are you doing? What did the owners get? They got nothing. They got screwed. And you held a gun against their head at the last minute. And you screwed them on the Canadian ratio. And you screwed the American players on the Canadian ratio as well, that I'll get into. You really screwed them. Okay? You really screwed them. And then the global roster positions too. The American players are getting screwed. So there's a real mutiny. So you know what the keeping Ramsey did? Because there's a mutiny. Because the American veteran players, they wanted the Canadian ratio reduced, starting ratio. They wanted it gone like the owners. Okay? Which the owners wanted it completely gone. And the Canadian ratio gone, period, gone. Which it should be gone. American players got screwed. The veterans, they got screwed. And then, they come up with this Ramsey and the Canadian Players Association and the Canadian player come up with this American veteran thing. And they thought this American veteran, 3 years with the CFL team or 4 years with the CFL, in the CFL, would count against the Canadian starter race, so they would count as a national. Oh no, they're not. You know what happens? They're going to count if a Canadian player is injured, and their starting Canadian player, they can fill in only that game to fill in. That's what it is. They got screwed in that too. They get screwed in the global roster thing. They get screwed in the Canadian ratio being reduced from 7 to 5 when the owners wanted it gone, the Canadian starter ratio. The American players get screwed. So you know what? There was mutiny. There was mutiny. And Ramsey and keeping and the Canadian players got worried to ratify the vote, CBA vote. So you know what they did? They took the American rookies, okay, at the CFL camps, rookie camps, okay, at the 12th hour. That's what they did. And they screwed the CFL on that American veteran ratio. They're supposed to actually count 3 or 4 years in the league as a Canadian. They screwed them on that. They screwed them on reducing the ratio, like I said, from 7 to 5, and they screwed them on the global, okay, the American players. So there's a mutiny. So you know what Keeping and Ramsey Canadian players did, and the commissioner, you know what they did? You know what they did? They had their rookies, and the commissioner did nothing about it, which was basically cheating or illegal. That was reported. The vote, okay, on the side of the Canadian players and Ramsey and Keeping and the commissioner who's in bed with them, okay, so they could ratify it because they didn't think they had enough votes, okay, because the rookies, they just want a paycheck. They didn't know anything about it. They just want to get in the CFL on the roster spot or whatever. Get a paycheck, okay, survive. So that they used them, and they didn't even pay. They weren't even paying union dues or association dues, and wasn't even really legally capable of because it didn't belong to the association to vote. And that's what they did. That's what Keeping and they did. They cheated, and the Canadian Players Association, they cheated, and the Canadian players, they cheated, and they screwed the American veteran players and the American rookies. They screwed too because they didn't know what was going on. You should be ashamed of yourself, Keeping and Ramsey, you should be ashamed of yourself, and the Canadian Players and the Canadian Players Association and the Commissioner for allowing this to go on. And it was a big cover-up. It was a big, big cover-up. So there's a real mutiny. Okay, I'm going to go down to 12 here. Okay, so there's a real mutiny. So the big question was, like I said, the Canadian Players and basic Canadian Players Association and Ramsey cheating on the CBA vote by the players, okay, by allowing the rookie players to vote, okay? So I actually said that, I'm sorry. I also went over that as well. I just want to go to 14 then. So there was a real mutiny over the Canadian ratio. So apparently now, I talk about that too. I'm way ahead of myself. American veteran ratio, I went over that. Wow, that's great. And I went over the global roster thing, that's great. So this is a real money grab CBA agreement for 3 years and not 5 years like the last one, mainly because the Canadian players and the Canadian Players Association align themselves up with the new TV TSN deal, hoping they're going to rape it more and take that 20% even higher. And by the way, Mark Cohen said revenue sharing, that's revenue sharing by 20%. And Mark Cohen would not allow that because he says it will never, at that time I think they had a $15 million, now they have a $40 million TSN deal, TV contract, but that's not going up, anything it's going down because CFL ratings are down a million, imagine, 1 million viewers down on last year's Grey Cup, imagine. So they think, oh, they're setting up 3 years when the new TSN deal is done so they can rape the league even more, okay? And that's why they're aligning it, only sign it for 3 years, because that's what they want to do, and try to increase that revenue sharing. And Mark Cohen said it'll never work in the CFL. It can work in the NFL because they have a $1 billion TV contract, but it can't work in the CFL, and there's no way it can work in the CFL. How many CFL teams are making a profit? What, 2, 3? You know, max. The rest of them are losing millions and millions of dollars. And, you know, the Canadian players, you say, oh, like if the Canadian ratio was changed, no one would go to CFL games. What are you talking about? No one's going to the CFL games now. You know why? Because they don't want to watch a third or fourth, fifth rate guaranteed Canadian starter passport, guaranteed Canadian and starter and roster player out there that have no business being on a CFL field that's only there because of the Canadian ratio and because CFL teams are forced to start and play you and be on half a CFL roster. You think that that's stupid? They're not going to buy that. They're not going to go to see a grossly overpaid, terribly overrated Canadian guaranteed ratio lineman making $250,000 that CFL teams need that they release. Imagine making that kind of, not even good enough to be on the field to protect a star CFL quarterback. Can you imagine? And there hasn't been a good Canadian receiver. Sinopoly's the only one. Name me another one. And they're demanding 100 to 150, and it's unbelievable. And it's unbelievable what's going on. And the American rookie players who are a lot better are getting peanuts. Okay, this is unbelievable. And the Canadian players, you say you want to make, okay, you want to be partners and grow the CFL? Oh yeah, you're all about money. And if you want to be partners, grow the CFL, then why wouldn't you allow the best available players to start and play in the CFL? Or the best receivers, okay? Or the best American old lineman to protect the CFL quarterback, to be allowed to recruit it and start. Why? You know why? Because you're only about money and control with your Canadian ratio, okay? That's all you're about. And by the way, on the Canadian ratio, you have 20 plus players going to the CFL. And by the way, if you want to grow and be part of the CFL, then why are you committed to the CFL, so-called CFL Canadian draft, when the top picks are going in the NFL? You're not even committed to even the combine. 8 or 10 of the top prospects didn't even go. The top 2 picks weren't even there, okay? Prospects weren't even there, didn't even go. And you say you're committed, you want to be partners, you want to grow the CFL? What a joke that is. You're all about money and only money. And by the way, the 20 top Canadian players that are down there in the NFL, and the top picks that are going down there, okay, what you do that, okay, what you do now, CFL owners, okay, well, get with the program. Now, start being a lot smarter then, okay, and say, okay, if the Canadian players are going down in the NFL and there's 20 to 24 players signing the CFL play in the NFL, signing the NFL, then that's 24 less Canadian starter positions that got to be filled, because now we can fill them with American players. better players, American players that are going to start. That's the way you handle that. If they don't want to eliminate it like it should be, like the owners want a Canadian starter ratio eliminated, needs to be eliminated. And the Canadian ratio eliminated, completely gone. But if they want to play, you know, there's no restriction placed on them. Start putting restrictions placed on them, big time. Not better yet, in 3 years, you bring them down. The American players and the American rookies, you have a conference, bring them down. And if Bo Levi Mitchell, you're crazy if you don't join with them and American top star quarterbacks. Join with them. Bring the Canadian Players Association, the Canadian players and their Canadian ratio down. Bring them down. Break them. Eliminate them. Get them out. And run your own CFL owners. And have the best available players playing in the CFL like every other professional sports league can. This is just ridiculous. Come on. Unbelievable. That's what you got to do. That's what you need to do. So that's pretty sleazy, right? That was pretty sleazy what they did. The Canadian players and the Canadian Players Association. You know, oh yeah, coached by Ambrosi. I've lost all respect for him. All respect for him. Completely. So I'm just moving on. See, I'm just checking down, going down, okay. So, yeah, the Canadian players, they really, and the Canadian Players Association, they really want to grow the CFL and be part of the CFL, be partners. Oh yeah, they just want to rob the bank and rape the CFL. They don't care if they go out of business. They couldn't care less. If you really cared about the product on the field, then why are you only practicing 4.5 hours a game? That's including half travel time and meeting sessions, okay? So it's not 4.5, it's less. When NFL is practicing double that, when the CFL game is more complex and a harder game to grasp. Okay, if you really want to grow and be partners with the CFL and grow and have a better product on the field, okay? You don't care the practice, and even less practice now you want with pads. You don't even want the practice, you just want the money. That's all you care about is money. Money, that's it, money. And you're robbing the CFL, and you are bankrupting the CFL, and you're bankrupting it more. So CFL owners, in 3 years, you got to stand up, and this is going to be the end of it, and the end of the Canadian players and their Canadian Players Association monopoly. You've got to bring them down, okay? You've got to bring them down. And you've got to allow the best available players to start and play at every position. Like the NHL can, like the NFL, like Major League Baseball, NBA, and yes, MLS soccer. And you've got to bring in have the best, you got to bring an exciting new rule that's going to make our CFL 3-down game a lot better and a lot more entertaining. Okay, a lot more exciting brand of CFL 3-down football to watch. It's going to eliminate the two biggest killers, two biggest turnoffs in the red zone. That being, as you know, the undesirable second down stops that nobody wants to see in the red zone. Repetitive and resulting in more distasteful, boring, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals. Those will be completely gone and eliminated. Can you imagine the two biggest killers, biggest turnovers of CFL 3-down game in the red zone? Gone with my CFL Red-Zone Rule. So you need a combo. You need Spyder's combo. That's what you need. Definitely need. So you imagine they try to cheat, really manipulate the vote. Okay? You imagine the Canadian Players Association. They try to manipulate and trick the CBA vote. Can you imagine that? That's what they did, and they got away with it, and Ambrosi did nothing about it. I can't believe it. And you know why they held a gun in their head at the 12th hour? I'll tell you why. Because they know the CFL are desperate. Because TSN are pushing them and saying, sign anything, because look, we lost the NHL to Sportsnet. We need CFL football. And they're behind it. This can't happen next time around. The TSN and the CFL and the owners and the American players, all and the rookie American players and the veteran American, all have to get together. And they got to bring the Canadian players and the Canadian Players Association and their Canadian ratio. They got to bring them down. They got to break them. They have to. Or the CFL is not going to survive. It will not be around if it makes it. If it makes it in 3 years to that. I mean, I don't know if it'll make it to that point. I really don't. So I just wanted to say just quickly, okay, on closing that, there are a few pompous so, you know, the CFL podcast people who think they know everything about CFL, that discovered my CFL Red Zone Rule, only briefly, they would never be interested enough to give it the time of day to know anything really about it. And they'll just run into the ground and try to take shots at it, but they don't count. Okay, who counts is the 350 plus I surveyed, those types of sports fans, all the younger generation sports fans I surveyed, all the NFL only sports fans, and all the CFL sports fans that have a sports brain that are really behind my CFL Red Zone Rule, and Steve Hermitage, who's really sold on it, and Jamie Nine and Mr. Van Sohn, and now Derek Taylor, who wishes me, he's the new voice of Saskatchewan Rough Riders. I sent it to him, and he wishes me luck with it. And by the way, what I wanted to close out on is the caretaker. Can you imagine his CEO sent me an email. He was so impressed with what I did for the caretaker, my special edition, my CFL Red Zone Rule, and on my CFL Red Zone Rule, that he's asked me to be a guest with them. Can you imagine, at a Hamilton Tiger Cat game in Toronto? Toronto, I'm sorry, in Hamilton. Can you imagine? And I'm going to take him up on that. There's no doubt about that. Okay, so CFL fans, in 2019 at the Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton and in every CFL stadium, okay, live. If you don't want any more unappealing second down stops in the red zone, 2 down stops in the red zone, same thing, and no more boring, distasteful, predictable, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals in the red zone. I want to hear you chanting loud in the red zone. Okay, in a CFL game live in 2019, we want Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule. I want to hear you chanting loud in the red zone. And at the 107th Grey Cup as well, we want Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule. And that's how we make my Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule part of our CFL 3-down game. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to put more up on Facebook. I'm going to be doing my radio blitz that I'm just finalizing. And you'll hear more about me and my CFL Red Zone Rule. Keep checking my Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule Facebook page. Okay, so remember, for more updates, live at a CFL game in 2019, I want to hear you chanting loud, we want Spyder CFL Red Zone Rule. Spyder, Spyder, here comes Spyders, CFL.